Yo, what up, guys? How you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Man, today I want to touch on a topic that is has much meaning to me, the topic of culture. Kendrick Lamar recently released a song called The Heart Part 5 in which he talks a lot about culture, how the African American culture is built on tearing each other apart, when someone does something, we are out there to harm them and we call it culture. We call it, yeah, I'm being cultural. It's like every time anybody makes a mistake, it's just, no, no, don't hold that mistake against me. It's for the culture, I'm doing it for the culture. And it made me really think a lot about it as someone who's moved countries and has had to experience different cultures and has had to acclimatize myself to a new culture, coming from Africa, Zimbabwe, where we have a different form of culture. I find myself out here with many challenges and struggles because in Zimbabwe, the culture that we had, the way that we moved, the things that we did, our social norms are quite different from the social norms that you find in places like Canada and places like America. And in these places, you have different cultural backgrounds within these nations. So you have Africans, Asians, people who are natives, people who are already living in these countries who have already developed their culture. And when you come in as a black person, even as a white person, or whatever race you are, you have to fall into the culture of your skin color. So for me, that means falling into the African American culture and having to embrace that, because when people look at you, that's the first thing that they see before getting to know you and asking you questions about where are you from, what are your cultural norms. And in getting to know people, we get to think about, oh, this is where you're from, so you're not really from here, so you're not really cultural. Yeah, I don't know how to explain it, but it's crazy when you think about it that way. How culture, how the world has transformed so much into becoming a global village, but then our cultural differences still exist and make it very difficult for us to integrate into different societies and move into and make different things. So I really like that Kendrick Lamar, when he made a song, he was questioning the African American society, because there's a lot of loopholes, there's a lot of things that happen in this culture that, frankly, I live in as well, where a lot of times we do stupid things and call it culture. It's like, oh man, I was caught out doing this, cancel that person for the culture, do this for the culture. But at what point does that become an excuse or whereby we don't question what that culture is, And I feel like Kendrick, in his song, he really touches a lot on it, and he leaves you to question, like, yo, how many things will we let go because of culture? And the other thing that he touches on is how as men, we are seen to be these, I don't know, like, type of gods, like these people who have it all figured out, to the extent that when we make mistakes, our cultures, it doesn't make room for mistakes. It's like, when you make a mistake, when you do something wrong, when you say something wrong, there is no way of you turning that situation around. It's like, this is who you are and this is who we are going to hold you as. And here you are trying your best to make the steps to you know to atone for what you did, right? Like, people go to jail, people, I don't know, people get shamed, people get embarrassed, people get to experience certain things. But culturally, our cultures just don't allow forgiveness. And, now we live in the cancel culture period where people will literally go back like 15, 20 years ago to see what you did just to cancel you today for the culture, to satisfy the culture. And I feel like we now live in a time where, as humans, we've forgotten what it's like to, it's what it's like to have compassion, what it's like to have the idea of people make mistakes and people can get forgiven, and what that means. I feel like, forgiving people, I understand, doesn't mean forgetting what that person did, because for some people it's very difficult. It's like you forgive them, but then you don't want them repeating the same mistake, and you have to be very cautious for your security. And it's sad that we now live in such times, because there used to be ways in which you'd know that someone would not do what they did, especially if they are atoning for their mistakes. But then also you don't want to be caught off guard and hit by something that you're not expecting, especially by someone who did it before. That statement. A tiger doesn't change its stripes; it's still a tiger. So you still gotta be very careful. But what I go with is, nowadays, people really don't care about redemption. Nowadays it feels that way. In his video, he uses OJ Simpson. Think about the jokes that have been made about this man. Think about the amount of conversations that have been carried out. And then with the Will Smith one, I was part of the people who went off after Will Smith, and it's sad that in those moments we didn't take time to appreciate what the brother was going through. Imagine the humiliation that he went through, and then to get to slap someone on live television, and then to go through that, how the internet reacted. So it's super sad, but that's the culture that we live in, because we don't really appreciate and think of other people until, like, God forbid, you hear something happen to Smith, then you're like, oh my God, what were we doing? What were we thinking? And I feel like Kendrick, in making this song, really put it out there and makes you question the culture that you live in, and makes you question the things that you think about. And I feel like that's where art really needs to be as well, because artists, man, have been losing their minds, if you ask me. Like, some of the music that comes out, you're like, yo, man, what you going on? But with the Hard Part 5, I feel like Kendrick really hit a nerve that should make people question. But the thing is, we live in a world where every 2 weeks something is gonna come up. From the time that he released this song 5 days ago, he's already released an album that overshadows the video that he made. And imagine how in a week's time something is gonna happen, in another week something else is gonna happen. And that's just the world we live in. That's the culture we live in now, where people are always looking on to the next. It's like, what's the next thing that's gonna come? And there's a lot of topics that we can touch, that we'll be touching on as well on his album, that he brings up. There's a lot of songs on that album that really touched me. One of it was Father Time. The other one is when he talks about his his aunt being a man. I laugh because coming from my culture, such things, man, get you into deep trouble. But that's just how, you don't control the environment that you're raised in, but it's your responsibility to be educated about it. With that said, this was just my takes on what I thought about Kendrick's song and video, The Hard Part 5. Go check it out for yourself, come up with your own interpretation, and let me know in the comment section what you thought of the song. I feel like it's a very valid song that's very important for the culture. I'll see you guys in the next one.